Hey everyone, I've decided to make a travel video unlike a lot of the travel videos that you find on YouTube. A lot of them, for example, they'll choose a place, they'll choose a city, and then what they do is they will go into way too much detail when it comes to, say, the top 10 things, the top 5 things to do in a place. So this is the top 17 things to do in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to really go through them super quick, and you guys can do all your other research behind it. And there's going to be no links below and stuff like that. Just the top 17 things to do in Washington, D.C. Number one, the Lincoln Memorial. So the Lincoln Memorial you'll find at the end of the National Mall. You can't miss it. It's a statue of Abraham Lincoln, also a famous place where Martin Luther King gave his speech. The White House and the Washington Monument. Now, this is listed as number 2 on this website, but I want to point out, obviously, the White House and Washington Monument, for those of you that don't know, are not obviously on the same place. So what you can see in the picture on your right, on the back, on the left-hand corner of that picture, you see this tower that's coming out. That's obviously the Washington Monument, and obviously in the foreground you've got the White House. Now, obviously, if you want to find any of these places, you just Google map it. It's very easy to find. And it's quite walker friendly in Washington, D.C., and it's super safe. Next, the National World War II Memorial. Now, I just want to point out as well, the National World War II Memorial, which is free, is very, very close to the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. What you must do is also just Google map it, and it's pretty close. So you can do that, and you can do the Abraham Lincoln Memorial like within whatever, I wouldn't say half an hour, within 1 hour. You can pause, spend a lot of time there. Okay, moving on. The US Capitol and the Library of Congress. Okay, I've been there. It takes quite a bit of time to do this. It's probably about, I would guess, thumb suck, a mile and a half from the Washington Monument, and also the Lincoln Memorial and so forth. It's not that, it's walking distance, but it's not like right on the doorstep. And my best tip for this is go early, because the queues can be quite long. And if you can, go out of season. In other words, don't go in spring or late spring. Go, say, if you can, or if you want to, go in winter, somewhere around late December, early January. Although it can be quite cold and you're not going to see the cherry blossoms, you're going to avoid a lot of the crowds. The Vietnam Veterans and Korean War Memorials. Now, the Vietnam Veteran Memorial is very, very close to the World War II Memorial, very, very close, as in a 8-minute walk. It's about an 8-minute walk to get there. You can't miss it. There's signboards up. Just if you're walking towards the World War II Memorial with the Washington Monument behind you, if you're walking towards the World War II Memorial with the Washington Monument behind you, stay on the right-hand side of that monument, of the World War II Memorial, and just keep going, and you'll get to the Vietnam War Memorial with that wall with all the names on. The National Gallery of Art. Okay, so the National Gallery of Art is located along the National Mall. Very, very awesome place. Again, it's free. I went there. Very interesting. So they've got Van Gogh, they've got Monet, they've got Van Ryn, they've got Rembrandt, they've got Picasso, and you can get super close to this. They've got Leonardo da Vinci there. So you can get super close to the pictures. Being a typical tourist, obviously Van Gogh did a lot of self-portraits of himself in paintings. I did a selfie of myself with his self-portrait, which I was quite proud of, and shared it with all my friends. So again, just bear in mind, this can get extremely busy in the peak season. But I went in December when it was quite quiet. There were maybe 5 people in the queue waiting for the Leonardo da Vinci painting. Then the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. I've been there. Okay, this is the best advice I can give you. They're open at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you should go there like 9:30 in the off season. And that's right, I did say in the off season. It's a very, very interesting museum. There are a lot of things to do there, but the earlier you go, the less time you'll need to spend in that museum, because the cool things that you can do in that museum will start to get extremely busy, and you'll have to start to queue. I'm not going to tell you guys about what's in there, but I'm just going to give you the advice. Go early. Don't go at 10 o'clock when it opens. Go at 9:30 and go in the off season if you can. If you don't do that, you are probably not going to see many of or do a lot of the activities that's in that museum. Okay, so what is the tidal basin? The tidal basin is, how can I put it in a nice way? Imagine a very large pond in front of the Lincoln Memorial. So when you walk from the World War II Memorial, with the Washington Monument behind you, and you walk towards the Lincoln Memorial. Now, as you can see in the picture on the right, that inside what looks like all those pillars is Abraham Lincoln's statue with him sitting on that chair. So if you stay on the right-hand side of that and you just keep going, you'll get to the Vietnam War Memorial. The National Archives Museum, this is also very interesting. It's got some of the original documents, such as the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I also would recommend to go, say, early-ish and try to go in the off-season, because it can be quite busy. Just think about it this way. You're dealing with a bottleneck because you've got one document and a whole lot of people that want to see it. Okay, the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. Best advice, obviously everybody's got different tastes. I'm gonna give you guys some advice on what I did here. Also go early, so I went sort of 20 to 10 in the morning. I started queuing. When I arrived there 20 to 10 in the morning, it was December, and it was, this is really off season and cold. There were already about 50 people in the queue. So obviously going early is very important. But the other thing I just want to mention is write down this as like the must-dos, okay? And the Hope Diamond in the Gems section, which is on the second floor. So write that down. The second floor, the Hope Diamond, and all those other diamonds. These massive diamonds. I think the Hope Diamond is 45 carats large. There's another huge diamond there. There's a whole lot of other very rare crystals and stuff that's there. The problem is some of these, that can get extremely busy. There's lots of security as well. And I think you're going to start queuing to see these things if you don't come pretty early. The second really cool thing to do in that museum that I found was, bear in mind, I'm a guy who's, I'm an adult male. I didn't go in there with kids or anything like that. So I was actually on my own as well. So I just shot to do like what I wanted to do as quickly as possible. So I went in, I did the Hope Diamond because I knew there was going to be queues there. And then I went and did the butterfly exhibit, which is super cool. There's this room with literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of butterflies that you pay $7.50 for an adult. I can't remember. I think the kids charge is $6.50. I'm not sure if that's plus tax as well. And you go in there and you can spend, I spent 10 minutes and I left. You could spend probably 15, 20 minutes there. The United States Holocaust Museum, also located on the National Mall for those that are interested. Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. The John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. The Washington National Cathedral, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, as well as, museum, the museum, that's a very, very interesting museum. They've got all these exhibits from very influential periods of time in our history. So, for example, the 9/11, they've actually got the, I don't know what they call it, the antenna that was on top of one of the World Trade Centers. They've actually got that on exhibit as well. And they've got a whole lot of photographs from 9/11, etc., etc. And they've got photographs from major periods in history. It's a very big museum and it's super interesting. Then the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. This museum was recently opened by Barack Obama. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was towards the end of his period of office. Now, what's not listed here on this website, Travel News, is the Arlington Cemetery, which I'm actually a bit disappointed that they didn't list that, because that to me was super interesting. Obviously, for some people to walk around a graveyard is not that interesting. I would recommend, if you are new to Washington, D.C., to actually go and do something like the full day tour of D.C., which would include Mount Vernon. Just I booked mine through TripAdvisor. It was super interesting. I only paid about $100 for it, $105, but it was a whole day thing. They take you from DC, you go past the Capitol Hill, you can see the White House, you can see the museum, you just go down the National Mall, you see all of these things that I've just mentioned in this video. And then you'll at least get a feel for what Washington DC has. Then from there, I would say plan your visit, and like I say, for the really big attractions, like go super early. Don't go like at the last moment. Don't go at like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and do not go. I'm sorry to say this, do not go in like late spring or spring, because what happens is there are literally hundreds and hundreds of buses of 8th graders who come to DC to learn about their American history, and you will be stuck, behind 50 kids trying to look at the Hope Diamond. You won't get into the butterfly thing, for example, in the National Museum. It's just going to be too busy. So leave the very busy periods out. If you plan your visit to DC, you could probably knock it off in about 4 or 5 days and see like basically everything. But it can be quite busy, even in the off period. But if you do your planning right, you can actually see a lot more than what people would think. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, click like and subscribe.